All right, so good morning and welcome to everyone who's present. My name is Melusina Gomez, and I'm going to be presenting today on something called flower dreaming, Temi Shok in the Nahuatl. And I think that Anne-Marie's already given a little introduction, so I want to say thank you to the Marin Library System and to the Grant for the Humanities that sponsors these kinds of programs so that we can have some multicultural information shared without having to have a lot of resources to go out and take workshops and find it. Today is a plática, and for those of you who might not know that term, a plática means a talk about some kind of sacred topic. And so a talk is different than a workshop. The subject of flower dreaming is quite a big subject. You could spend a long time learning both the theory and the technique. So what I'm inviting us to do today is to open our hearts and our minds. And I'd like to give you a little bit of a broad understanding of what flower dreaming is, where it comes from, and how you could begin to approach it in your own life. And we'll see how far we get. I mean, should there be enough time, we might try and exercise together, but 45 minutes is not a great long time for that. So I want to make sure to give you a broad overview first. So I'd like to invite everyone to first just bring themselves present. Sometimes when we have information that can be complicated, it's hard to just take it in, especially in the morning, just like that. So let's make sure we're all here with our souls present as well as our bodies and our minds so that we can absorb. And also absorbing means to remember, because these kinds of techniques and these theories are in our soul, in our body, in our bones, in all of our cultures. Though certain cultures have different specialties, there's an aspect of remembrance to meeting the things of the sacred mystery traditions. So just sitting where you are, take a deep breath. And as you exhale, just let go of all the heavy energy, whatever extra things are going on, weighing you down. And inhale again. And as you exhale, just begin to tune yourself now to the larger forces and their movements. That would be the cosmos, the measure, the movement around us, that dance that we're part of, but is hidden from view. And inhale again. And as you exhale, just to connect with the moon. We're going to be talking a lot about the moon today. So connecting with the moon in all of her aspects, one of the largest feminine forces. And inhale again. And connect now as you exhale with your own dream life, wherever it is now. Maybe you're a lucid dreamer. Maybe you don't remember your dreams. Wherever stage you're in, just connecting with the night, with the hidden, with the dream. And just hear the sound of this rattle. Breathe your whole self into your body. With each inhale through your mouth, all the pieces of yourself back home to you. And exhale through your nose, just letting yourself land. Inhaling through your mouth, also collecting all of your ancestral history, who you've been, who your family have been, that knowledge that's there in you, calling it home and honoring it. Honoring too the place where you live and the first peoples, the indigenous peoples of that land. As you bring yourself here present in the place where you are, what we call the Tlaktika. And breathe. Okay. And so now we'll begin. I apologize for some noise you might hear in the background. My family's home and you hear cats and children. So that will be a little bit of a background presence. So the information that I want to share today comes from ancient Mexico. Many of the different ancient cultures had mystery traditions, of course, and they had different specialties in different places of the world. The specialty of ancient Mexico was dreaming. And so there are many, many theories and many practices about how to work with dreams. In a simple way, in a complex way, this knowledge was once only for the people who were rulers or born into the class of the priests and priestesses, or for people who were going to be certain warriors might have also had it. This because the people were assigned based on where they were born within the Mexica calendar, the Aztec calendar. The day, the time, the moment of your birth was predicting certain influences of where your strengths and your talents would be. So it wasn't a caste system. It was a system based on looking at the stars to read what people's gifts would be and placing them there to learn. And you would have been placed there as a child and spent 52 years studying in order to learn the mysteries of dreaming and working with the unseen, for example, or whatever different traditions you might have been ascribed to. So because it was a 52-year tradition to learn, it takes a very long time to really develop dreaming. So the first thing is understanding that we're trying to catch up. Now is a time when we don't have the structure anymore. Colonization, of course, destroyed the structure that was there, but the people, the ancient ancestors of the lineage, were wise enough and had a lot of predictive tools to see the time that we were living in now. And when they knew that they weren't going to be able to fight against the force of colonization and win, because they understood the time they were living in and the movements that were sweeping over all the lands, they decided instead to stop fighting and to preserve their traditions and preserve their treasure. And what they meant by treasure was the sacred knowledge that they were holding. So, so instead of fighting, they hid it and they passed it on in an oral tradition. So from mother to daughter and from father to son. The oral tradition is going to be different than what you read usually. If you're reading materials that you're finding online or in most books that come from anthropology, from things like the codices, like the Codex Borgia and things like that, that were a little bit recorded, some of the concepts and traditions, but these were recorded by the priests of the Catholic Church, recording what they observed. So some things are left out, some things were not understood. Some of the priests had, of course, a bad attitude towards what they saw and were confused by it or afraid of it. Others found it to be important sacred knowledge and tried to preserve it by recording it. But regardless of how they recorded it, they didn't have all the pieces quite correctly because they were dealing with a different language, very metaphoric language, a very different world concept from where they were coming from. And so you don't get the exact understanding through a lot of that. So the oral tradition is very important, but it won't match with maybe with some of the other things that you may have read or seen. So just understanding that. My teacher, I have more than one teacher, but my primary teachers are Oselo Koyo, Sergio Magana, whose books you can find and read. The book that he wrote about dreaming is called The Toltec Secret, and that's a very accessible book to understand some of the techniques. So I point you in that direction to read further and also to learn more about where to begin. But I'm going to share some of the things from his teachings and from my teachings with Chikwe Coat, Patricia Juarez, who is also of the Mexica lineage herself and her family, and putting together some of the stories and some of the concepts for you today as a beginning. Okay, so the history of the ancient Mexicas and the Aztecs. The word Mexico and the word Mexica comes from the Nahuatl understanding about what Mexico is. It means the place, Mexico means the place of the navel of the moon. The moon being one of the primary forces of what rules dreaming. So to say Mexican or Mexica means the people of the navel of the moon. And that means like the land of dreamers or the people of the land of dreamers. It was the specialty that ancient Mexico focused on cultivating and developing, along with many other techniques embodied in the tradition Nahualismo. Nahualismo was developed by the ancient Mexicas. So the Aztecs, the name they called themselves was Mexica, but they named themselves after an earlier tribe, much, much earlier. So the Aztecs lived in a city called Teotihuacan. And this is, they were the 20th group to live there. So much, much earlier, and they had come from another place. the earlier groups that lived and passed down their information. And it was just the Aztecs, the Mexicas who recorded it and made the effort to really preserve it and pass it on, and worked with the practices that were added to the predictions. But these started far in advance. The earlier Mexica, the Olmec, the Toltecs. So from all of these lineages, we have bits of information and practices. So where to begin? I'm going to begin actually with a little bit of a story to help you understand why I'm framing this today, to talk about not only dreaming, but the feminine forces when we're dreaming, and how to access and work with some of the feminine forces, and why that's important. So like I mentioned, what Mexico means, the first Mexica, they called themselves the people of the halo of the moon, and then later adapted that to the people of the navel of the moon. And you'll understand why when you understand the heart of some of the dreaming practices, and what you're really striving for have to do with unifying the part of us that dreams and the part of us that operates in the day when we're awake. So if you could see energy, and some of you maybe can, and all of us certainly can practice and develop it, you would see like a kind of a halo around the head that looks amber or gold or some kind of color like that. The paintings of saints and many of the mystic peoples often have like a little bit of light, of almost like a crown around there. That's what we call the place of the tonal. So tonal means who we are waking, who we are in the sun or in the day. It's the part of us that is like a little bit like our ego, not in a bad way, but our waking consciousness. And the part that is active almost all of the time. And in our time, the part that is the thing that we believe in, that we operate with, our rationality, our reason. And in that, there's also important practices, but we have another aspect of us that lives around the area of our navel. And this is called our nawal, which comes from two words. It comes from newa, which means who I am. And what it means is who I am really. Okay, so that's who I am in the day is your tonal, and the nawal is who I am really. So it means your dreaming body, the part of you that dreams, the part of you that can see past the illusion of reality to see the other things that are more hidden. And it's the part of us that's active at night when we're dreaming. So when we're awake, usually what we're seeing strong is our tonal is here, and our nawal is, you normally don't see it. It's more of a gray kind of color, so it's harder to see, and it lives around the navel. But when we sleep, when we dream, these two aspects of ourselves switch. And so our nawal rises up to our head, our tonal goes down. And because of that, in dreams, we have an entirely different logic. And then we see differently, we experience things differently. We can move energy, we can do a lot of things that are not possible in our waking state. And this is important because a lot of the work of dreaming is to have your tonal and your nawal working together, and literally to join them at the place of the heart, the place of the chest or the heart. Because the more unified they are, the more we begin to engage with magic, with the unseen, with our own dream life, and to be able to use that to create. So in the ancient culture of Mexico, the purpose of dreaming wasn't just to have a processing of what happened in the day, of your emotions and your thoughts. It was believed, and still is believed, that we create when we're dreaming. We create what we're going to meet. And you see this a lot in our language. I found the home of my dreams. I met the man or the woman of my dreams. We have a lot of that left over in our language, but in reality, in the ancient world, that was very literal, that they actually understood that we're creating. We don't have 100% control over what we're going to live and meet with our dreams. But the more disciplined in practice and the more we use that, the more we can strongly influence what we create with our intention. And that's the point of coming to a practice like lucid dreaming, because if you awake with your mind while you're sleeping, then you can start to shape your dreams. Or with something like dream planting, where you don't have to have lucidity, but you're planting what you want to meet in your dreams, because what you dream then is what you created. But how most of us operate right now, and it's no fault of our own, of course, because these informations were almost lost. What most of us do is just let our unconscious rule how we dream. So we get pieces of things that we're worried about. We get a lot of our ancestral patterns, the way our ancestors dream, influencing us to dream similarly. We have the things of our unconscious that we're trying to work out, our traumas, our problems, our repetitive destructive issues showing up in our dreams, along with our anxieties and all of those things. But unfortunately, from that, we are then perpetuating those cycles because we're recreating and creating more of the same kinds of things that we're processing in the dreams in the future. And so that's why it's so important to think about dreams, because we want to get out of that cycle. To the ancient world, living like that is like being the living dead, not having any control over how you move your life and being subject to a lot of the negative influence or the harder influence of our emotions and of our heavier thoughts through letting our unconscious just run rampant in the dream time. So the practice of dreaming is a practice of creating your life with intention. That's the meaning of flower dream. So flower dreaming comes from the word Xochitl, so temishok, so temically it means dream in Nahuatl, and Xochitl means flower. So literally flower dream, because flower means a kind of version of enlightenment in our culture. So the world, the concept of the universe is drawn like a flower. And I won't go into all the way that teaching because it will take too much time. But to work on all the aspects of the flower means like you're working on the different aspects of yourself, how you dream, how you feel, what you move, how you create, so that you know the heavens and you know your underworlds. You have a system that leads you towards your highest destiny, your highest possibility. And that's our version of enlightenment. So to say flower dream means that it's a conscious dream. It's a dream that is dreamed with intention to take us to our best possibility. That's the meaning of a flower dream. And that's what we want to talk about. So why the feminine forces? There's a story about the birth of one of the major forces within the tradition Nahualismo, which is Huitzilopochtli, the hummingbird, the blue hummingbird who flies left. Huitzilopochtli was the force that guided the Aztecs, the Mexica, to come to Mexico. They came from somewhere else that we don't know where. The only thing it says there was a place where the city was white, everything was white, and it was destroyed, and all 7 tribes had to leave. And the one of the Aztecs were the weaker of the tribes, and so they had a dream, because even in that culture they worked a lot with dreams. So the dream gave them a prophecy. The dream was of Huitzilopochtli, a hummingbird, a blue hummingbird flying left, that told them to follow, to break off from the others and to look for a sign. And when they saw the sign, you've seen this because it's on the Mexican flag, of the eagle with the serpent in its mouth and sitting on a cactus. When they would see that, then they would know they'd found the place where they were going to thrive, where they would build their empire. And so they went in search of that, and they did, in fact, find it. But along the way, they had another one with them whose name was Mali Nali, that played some tricks a few times, turning, because she was a bruja, a magician, so she would turn herself into that symbol. And then when they would be happy to see it, then she would laugh, shapeshift back to herself and laugh and say, why, I got you, just as a joke. And they grew tired of this. And so the story is that at one time when she was sleeping, they left her behind and they went on without her. And when she woke up, she was angry, and she created a curse for the Aztec Empire, that they would be the the shortest lived empire. And in fact, they were. When the Spanish came and they showed up with a woman whose name was Malinali, who was an indigenous woman who was helping to translate, they recognized that as the follow through of the curse, which is one of the reasons why they decided not to keep fighting, and knew that their time had come. But Malinali has a bigger story than that. When Huitzilopochtli was first born, this is the mythology. It said that it was Tonantzin, the Mother Earth, who was pregnant. Tlali Tonantzin Coatlicue, the Mother Earth, pregnant, who had already given birth to the moon and the stars. And so at this point, when she was mother, and it said that the moon and the stars were scandalized by that and by being pregnant again at her age, and they were concerned about what was going to be born, and they decided to attack her and kill her when she was giving birth, so that the child would not come to the world. But Tonantzin heard about this, and she felt very sad, but then also heard a voice from inside that said, "Don't worry, mother, I will protect you when the time comes." And when her labor came, sure enough, the moon and the stars attacked. But Huitzilopochtli was born with like a warrior, with a kind of a hook, and immediately went to battle, attacking, fighting back his siblings. And that's why the moon got cut into 4 phases. This is the mythology. But while this was happening, very quietly, the Mother Earth gave birth to another child, a twin, who was called Malinali. Now, Huitzilopochtli stands for discipline, warriorship over the things that make you suffer, doing what seems impossible, overcoming your weaknesses. But Malinali was born a pure force of magic. Her energy rules the dreams, the secret arts, magic, the obsidian mirror, seership, seeing beyond what's right in front of you. But when she was born, with all of this happening, her mother told her that she would have to hide her gifts because the world wasn't ready to accept that. And so she would need to hide them until the time when it was going to be, the world was ready and appropriate for them to come forward, and then she would be supported. And so Malinali starts her life already with betrayals, and then that one, the one that goes with the story of the Mexica traveling to the land of Mexico. But I mentioned this story because the time that her mother was talking about was the time that we're living in now, the dawn of what we call the sixth sun. So you might have seen my presentation before or not, that I talk more about the prophecy. This isn't going to go deeply into that. But now is a time where we're in a new epoch, that we're talking really long periods of time, 6,695 years. So really, 6,625 years, very long periods of time. So we're only at the beginning of the transition from the 5th sun to the 6th sun. The 5th sun was a very masculine sun. It was what they call the angry sun, or the sun of injustice, when there was a lot of oppression, one group oppressing and pushing down another, creating a lot of injustice, a lot of anger. And we have the forces of colonization, we have genocide, war, so many things. However, the 6th sun is a sun that has no masculine influence. It's a sun that began with midnight in the night. And the forces of the 6th sun are entirely feminine forces. So the feminine, which has been largely oppressed, along with all the unseen, all of the Nawal, is rising again now. So the 5th sun was an entirely tonal sun of the day, of the waking mind, of logic and reason, and denigrated everything that wasn't a part of that. So magic, women, healing, working from the inside out, looking within, these things were not supported in the 5th sun. But in the 6th sun, they are proposed and purported to be the important ways to work, because they're going to be the energies that are more supported by the earth now and more supported by the cosmos. What that means is that potentially, with the time that we're entering into, and we're only at the beginning where we're seeing one iteration of our world kind of dissembling and changing. But the new one that's meant to rise, that's rising now, is one where it will become very effective to work with your dreams, to work with magic, to make relationship with the feminine forces, to work with changing your life and healing yourself by looking within, by working with your Nawal, by working with healing on a more psychic level, rather than the way that we have been doing things where we come at everything from the outside. We're looking for like a medicine, that will change us, or to medicate ourselves, or to force ourselves, or to just pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. But now working in the subtle arts is going to have the more effect. That's what the prophecy says. So the time that Tonantzin was discussing with her daughter, telling her to hide her gifts until, is the time that we're just living in. We're just beginning to live in now. So when we approach working with dreaming, dreaming is going to become a very powerful art, I think, for our time, and especially when we align with the feminine forces. So how can we do that? All right. So I'm going to consult. I have pages and pages of notes to stay on track here. So there are many, many practices and many different kinds of ways to begin to work with dreams. But before we begin to wield the practices, we have to understand like how dreaming language works and how the dreaming cycles work. So first off, if you don't remember your dreams, that's one of the first things that you need to work on. To catch that little bit of time in the morning when you're first waking up, to try to see where your mind has been, where you've been dreaming, because as you know, it disappears quickly as you get busy with the day. So we call that state when you're first waking up in the morning, the hypnagogic state, because you're still sort of halfway in dream, but you're not all the way awake. It's a powerful state. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go back. You ask yourself, where was I just? And then what happened before that? What happened before that? What happened before that? Where did it begin? And try to get your mind, before you even get out of bed, before anything happens, to start going back and back and back to catch what images and what themes and what things you recall, even if they're fragments. And when you're finished with that, always, the idea of flower dreaming can be quite literal. Flowers are a symbol of manifestation, things to manifest in a beautiful way. So when you're finished, when you've recalled, just visualize flowers and flowers and flowers before your eyes, manifesting in beauty, the intentions and the things that you want. So you can have your intention for healing, for protection, for creating what you need, and just see flowers and flowers. That's the first thing, because you want to start to track what you're dreaming. So I'm going to give you some of the key concepts in dream interpretation, but with a little caution. It's not about interpreting the meaning and then holding on to the meaning. We only interpret so that we know what we want to do with our dreams, whether we need to change them, whether we need to cancel them, and how to plant to start to counter what we're compulsively dreaming. The story of the dream gives you a certain context, but it's not so much the emotions and the story of the dream that are important as the symbols that you also see, because they'll tell you what the dream is actually creating or destroying, rather than just the story. So for example, you might have a really fun dream about skiing where you're going up and down. And you might wake up and think, oh, that's great because I enjoyed it. But actually up and down, especially down, means something that isn't going to be helpful for you to create. Because anytime you go down in a dream, here's the first important one. If you're going down, you're going to your underworlds. The underworlds are a place where part of our mind is trapped. It is where we go when we die at first to resolve certain things we haven't resolved. There are 9 levels And they're all most 8 of them are problematic things that we're trying to work out. So for example, heavy emotions, places where you're frozen with fear, your repetitive destructive patterns, your addictions, your the places that are in darkness that you don't know how to create, things like that, ancestral patterns that are problematic. So when you're going down in a dream, you're going down into the territory of those issues, your issues, and you don't want to create more playing that out in your life. So unless you have unless you're a high level dreamer, you know, you learn some things and you know how to go down in order to heal that. If you're just dreaming about down, generally that's a dream that you want to cancel, or you want to try to train yourself to dream something different. If you are going up in a dream, conversely, if you go up, that's going towards the heavens, which is a way of moving towards your highest destiny. All of the different 13 heavens are places where it's the steps that spiritual energy takes to become matter. And along the way, where we're able to create more favorable things and take ourselves to our highest destiny, our highest possibility. So going up is good. So direction is the first thing that you want to pay attention into how you're dreaming. If you're dreaming down, if you're dreaming up, if you're dreaming to the right or to the left. To the right is the direction where you're learning through the path of knowledge, the more favorable way, the easier way. To the left is where you're learning from hardship, more like in the warrior way. It can be good, you can learn a lot, but it won't be the easy one. So going left, not the easiest way to create. Logic of the dreaming tends to be symbol plus element plus direction. So there are lots of dreaming symbols to learn, but some of the prominent ones for people to pay attention to, let's say water is one. Water is heavy emotion in the language of dreaming. So when you're going in water, unless you're bathing, because bathing is always cleansing, but if you're not bathing, if it's water that you're sitting in, even if it's a wonderful hot tub or a bath, you know, bathtub's different, but a hot tub, for example, a swimming pool, ocean, any flat water, that means you're headed into the direction of heavy emotions, or trouble, difficulty in your life. You don't want to compulsively dream water. Unless you have a very special relationship with water and it's come to mean something different in your dreams, but most likely not. Fire, the element of fire is really important. Fire means destruction. So that can be positive or negative. If you're having a candlelit dinner in your dreams with someone in a relationship, but there's candle with fire, it indicates that there's going to be a destruction to that energy. Not that it's a nice positive thing, but that the nice positive energy has an element of destruction coming in. So this is why we need to learn the language of dreams, as well as to understand the context that our mind is giving us from the images and the people that we know or that we associate, that become kind of our own archetypes. Rain is water, but it's falling water. A rain is always going to be for healing. So these are some of the more positive things. So I'm telling you these because you can also plant. You can also plant that you dream rain, for example, or that you dream going up, or that you dream that you turn into a blue hummingbird, for example, to help yourself overcome your obstacles and to overcome your weaknesses, to do what seems right now to be impossible. You can also visit and supplicate to certain energies. For example, you can visit the moon. There are 3 main feminine forces: the earth, the moon, and the night. In the coming times, these 3 feminine forces are going to have the more power. So to learn to dream to visit the moon, or if you haphazardly visit the moon in your dream, to recognize the moment. This is another really important way to flower dream, even if you don't know how to lucid dream now. To plant in your mind that if you see the moon Or if you see a figure with white eyes, will also signify the moon, an animal or a woman with white eyes. The moon is the force most close to humankind, the one who has duality that can give fortune or misfortune, is one aspect of what we call the Black Tezcatlipoca, but that also will grant favors. So if you have a need for healing for yourself or another person, if you have a need to manifest abundance, it can be very practical. If you see the moon in your dream, or you see someone with white eyes, immediately ask for a favor. And in the dream state, you have a higher chance to have that come to you very quickly. Okay, so I want to back up and talk a little bit about the cycles of the night and how to work with dreaming. Okay, so I talked about the Nawal and the Tonal. There are many, many practices for strengthening that inside yourself. A lot of them involve actual physical exercises that work with the abs, because the physical place of the navel where your Nawal lives, if you're physically strong there, it also helps your energy to be strong there. So there's a whole practice called kin, which is a form of Aztec yoga. Kin means protectors. And if you work with the kin, it will strengthen your Nawal. Anytime you work with your dreaming practices as well, working with your intentional lucid dreaming, that will strengthen your Nawal. Every time you work with the seership practices, focusing on seeing past the veil of reality that's in front of us, you strengthen your Nawal. Most of us don't have an extremely strong Nawal because our time that we've lived in does not promote the use of that. So your tonal may be more developed, unless you're someone who's really been working at a lot of ceremony, a lot of sacred practice, a lot of seership or magic, then it gets stronger and stronger. That's the first thing. There are, many different avenues in. When you're dreaming in a cycle of the night, it's not equal the whole way through. When you first fall asleep, you are going into a phase where your body wants to repair for like the first half of the night. But especially in that first hour or so, you fall into a deep sleep. You might have dreams, but the dream cycles will be interrupted. So this first half of the night is not the best for flower dreaming, for planting into your dreams. Usually you can try to self-hypnotize a little bit in that time, planting an intention. But the best practice for flower dreaming is to get in the habit of waking up sometime in the middle of the night for like 20 minutes so that you're awake enough that then you use the second half of the night. It's the second half of the night when you spend longer in the rapid eye movement, the deeper level of sleep, where you're dreaming. Now, in the ancient world of the Mexica, the original tribe that the Aztecs, who called themselves Mexica, named themselves after, their art was all dreaming. And the way that they used to practice it was to cut the night. And in the second half of the night, they would do it in pairs often, where one would watch the other. And when they start to see with the eyes closed, the rapid eye movement, moving right and left, they would start to give them a suggestion like, hey, become the serpent, and become the serpent, that would be like for physical healing, or become the eagle to fly up, and give them a suggestion right into their unconscious mind. And with this, the other person would begin to dream, right? But you can still repeat that. That's probably the easiest way if you're working with in a kind of partnership where someone is sleeping next to you, that is willing to watch you and give you that prompt in the second half of the night. Be the fastest, easiest one. And you could plant flowers to manifest things with beauty. You could plant rain for healing. You could plant the serpent, the snake, for healing. You could plant the eagle for moving to your highest destiny. You could plant the hummingbird, the blue hummingbird that flies left, for the overcoming your weaknesses and your obstacles in your life, or green hummingbird for healing your relationships or bringing relationships. These are just some suggestions. Or always flowers. Another thing you can do is to take an image of something you want to create and then work with the size. So in this state of mind, you could, in the second half of the night, for example, you could visualize, like say you wanted to have more abundance in your life, and that's been a difficulty for a lot of people with this pandemic. You could visualize something like, it can't be like a dollar amount because that doesn't mean a lot in the dream time. It's images that mean more. So literally like a coin or a dollar bill, and you would have it grow bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Even better, you give your unconscious a reason to create something. So for example, you might say, I am going to be impermeable to the virus. I'm going to survive all of that so that I can create, and then you're intending something, because I have a book to write, because I have to take care of my family, because giving your unconscious a reason makes it even stronger to plant in your dream. So you could do it that way too. And then give an image. So give the reason and then give an image, right? Or give the archetype, and either have somebody plant it for you, or if you don't have someone to plant it for you, then you have to be both the director, the puppet and the puppet master, both at the same time. And that's where we get into the practices that take discipline and repetition, because you have to work with being in that hypnagogic state where your body falls asleep, but your mind stays awake enough that you begin to implant a certain idea to self-hypnotize, so that you enter the dream time with a little bit of program already running, and then you dream. And then the next morning, quickly, you go back to see, what did you dream? Did any of the things that you planted show up in your dreams? And you keep repeating this process until you're seeing those things and remembering them. And then you hopefully are meeting them in your life. And it's not meant to be like a year later. The things that you plant in your dreams, you should be seeing them relatively soon, within a few days, within a month, not much longer than that. Otherwise, keep planting and keep planting. So such a short time. What else can I tell you that will be helpful? There are lots of ways to self-induce. For those who are like hungry to learn a little more, put your email in the chat, and I'll reach out to you, because I always do teach and offer different things, so I can give you a little bit more concrete information. But for everyone else who's just going to like absorb what you can absorb from today, I like to leave you with one practice at least, the practice of dream canceling. This is really important, because the first thing we have to do is to stop ourselves from creating the things that we don't want to create. And then we try to work with our falling asleep time to plant the things that we'd like to plant. In the dream time, you are between like 2,000 and 3,000 times more powerful than in like a waking state, with your intentions and affirmations, and with your even with your meditation, unless you reach like a very deep hypnagogic level with your meditation. Why? Because it's the fertile soil. It's the time when you're accessing like more deeply your DNA, your programming, the part of your brain that's fluid, the part of your brain that was creating yourself when you were in the womb of your mother, when you were dreaming originally. So when we're dreaming, we're like in that state again, recreating and creating our life. Malleable, flexible. So we might plan an intention for our life and repeat it every day with an affirmation and a prayer, and that helps. But that only is going to go so far. If you can train your mind to do that while you're asleep with images, then you're going to have a very different experience of power. And that is why in the old world, it was only taught to people who were in power, or who were the priests and priestesses of the culture. Now, the prediction for our time is that these techniques are for everybody. And this is the time predicted where we become the Quetzalcoatl or the Mamali Nalis, the people who recover the pathways of enlightenment, but in a democratic way, and the pathways of magic, but in a democratic way for everyone. That's why there's a sharing right now. So the part of the prophecy was that these traditions and these teachings were kept secret until 2012, when it was the very, very first movements beginning towards the sixth sun. It didn't happen then. That was only the beginning, where it started to rise in influence. And now we're at the place where we stepped over the line into the sixth sun just at the beginning. So these are shared now because now's the time when they're meant for everyone, and meant to be effective. So dream canceling is simple. I will tell it really quickly. If you have a dream that you don't like, a dream of violence, death is different because death means change, but violence, dreams of water, dreams of going down, dreams of fire when you didn't want to destroy that thing. Imagine the dream, the primary image of the dream, and place it here in your third eye. See the image, hold it there, and set it on fire. Call the young fire, ask it to burn it all the way. And you have to really visualize it all the way burning, not sitting intact behind the flame, but burning to ash or melting down. And then the smoke that rises from that, you visualize it as a serpent, a snake, and you take that down your body. Even use your hand to take it down. As it moves down through your body, through your chakra systems, you letting it eat up every part of that dream and how it might be affecting you physically, taking it all the way down to your right foot and then to the earth. So you can either stomp your foot or hit the ground with your right hand once with an exhale through your mouth and ask the earth to take that dream, and then hit it or stamp again with the exhale. Ask the earth to make something else beautiful grow, and then visualize flowers, 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 things that you would like to manifest in beauty. That's optional, but important is to make sure you ask the earth twice to take the dream, so that right away you can start to recall your dreams better, cancel the ones you don't want to create, and then really work with and training yourself, if you can, in the second half of the night, to plant into your mind what you want to dream instead. So very, very quick introduction to a very, very big topic, but I hope it gives a little framing, because I think dreams have become something where it's popular, but there's so many different ways to approach them. This one is not about psychology. This one is all about mysticism, and it's been cultivated over many, many generations. It's purported that it was 50,000 years ago that the Mexicas lived, but this is from the oral tradition, right? So you won't find that in the anthropological accounts because they're counting the stones, but they didn't dig all the way to the oldest, deeper stones at the site. But many, many groups lived on that site. And so we have the oral tradition to tell us of the practices of the past. So the practices of the Mexica, also there's a lot of practices from the Toltec, all about dreaming, and they're intact and they've been passed down, and it's a gift to us. So I suggest to read the Toltec Secret as a way in with some practices in it. You can probably get that at the library, or to contact me. And I'd be happy to share more. And I do, of course, groups that can teach people. And I'll put my email up here too, so that anyone who wants to contact me can. So for everybody, I'm going to say just thank you so much for going with me and being willing to listen and to have a fast introduction. And I'm honored to share with you and to honor the intention of the ancestors to start to make these teachings more public, so that we can all use them to navigate a time that's changing. That's why they preserve them for us. And so that we can flower with the concept of flowering, coming to our highest possibilities, solving our problems and our ancestral inheritance that wasn't easy, and coming to what we can be, to the kind of humans we can be. So may you create very beautifully in your life, and may you flower. Ometeyero.
Thank you so much, Melusina. And thank you to everybody that has attended today. And I will put my email in the chat as well. If you have any feedback, please feel free to email me. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I missed it.